Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Vulture Culture, and this is the incredible Donner L1. So Donner sent this over for me to check out, and they gave us a special code, links in the description. The code's Vulture, and you can get a discount on this guy for $228, which is incredible. Now, that's for the top part of the synth, keyboard separate. I think it's 300 something for all of it together. However, you could use this with any MIDI controller or any sequencer, your DAW, whatever you prefer. But of course, I like the keyboard. I'm a keyboard-oriented human being. And this is a really awesome value synthesizer. This has got to be one of the only times I can think of in recent memory where a company has come along and made a product cheaper than Behringer, and it feels more premium. That's why I like Donner so much, is they kind of fill that same space as Behringer. The B1, really great 303 clone. And now we have the L1, which is a clone of course, one of the most legendary synthesizers of all time, the Roland SH-101. It is a synthesizer that's been used on countless records. And so we've got a 3340 VCO running through an IR3109 filter chip. Of course, they're clones, they're not vintage chips, but you know, for $228, it's pretty incredible. So we have that just beautiful buzzy right off the front end. And it does have that aggressive Roland-y type sound, doesn't it? I'm not always the best person to talk about premium build quality because I'm so used to vintage synthesizers, and even the really great ones don't necessarily always feel as premium as the stuff that's coming out nowadays. However, for me, the Donner L1 is so nice with these glass panels here. And then it's plastic, but it's this really nice matte plastic. All of the faders and everything feel perfect with, you know, I guess a little bit of wobble or whatever, but like we've got these cool LED pitch bend and mod wheel situation happening. Just really incredible build. I like the keys. They're fine. They have a matte feel to them as well, which is pretty cool. This is a clone Blue Monkey Junk. It's a clone of the Behringer MS-101. So we have that really aggressive Roland-y filter. We have a source mixer with a lot of different options here. So we have noise. We have a sine wave, which is pretty triangular. Of course, it's monophonic. That's not a polysynth. So to my ear, that's definitely more triangle-y. We can apply some pitch mod from the VCO or the LFO. For those types of sci-fi sounds, a little bit less. Take it really far, actually. Let's go more. I said less. Let's go big. So a very small amount of that. can really give kind of like a fluty sort of sound because you have those extra harmonics. It's not a sine wave. It's definitely a triangle wave. Billy Bart, that's right. It's a clone of the Roland SH-101. Welcome to the stream, by the way. It's the original only saw and pulse. That's interesting because I know Portishead used it on Dummy to make like a theremin sound. So they must have used the square wave. So if we wanted to take this into more of a fluty territory before we cover the other stuff, we'll add a little noise. I appreciate the promoing, Carl. Yeah, so really beautiful sound. Not really using the resonance on the filter at all, just using a little bit there. So let's open the filter back up. We've already checked out the saw wave. Square wave, which does have pulse width modulation, so I'll turn that off. The bass. Then we have a sub oscillator, so we got to go up an octave, so I just click the octave key to go up. And I think I have it on the wrong setting here. Let's put it to 1 octave down. Right, so are they the same? Yeah, so they're pretty close, both at the same time. So this is a way that you can get some real deep attack, because if you have only the one oscillator, it's good, but there's something to be said for that stacked, you know, sub oscillator where you get those extra harmonics. We can drop the sub oscillator down another octave, which is just filthy. Right? And then we can actually take, so I'm listening to just the sub now. We can take the sub from a square wave to a pulse. And this, I feel like they may have selected this width on the pulse down low on the sub to sort of give you a little bit of the even harmonics of a sawtooth wave. So let's put that to the test. Let's bring in a sawtooth wave. That's a sine wave, which is actually a triangle. Let's bring in a sawtooth wave. Versus the square sub saw 2 octaves up. I don't know if there's that much of a difference, is there? Keith, I would love to get my hands on a CS-01. I don't know. I think I might be onto something. I think there's a little bit of a way that it blends in with the sawtooth a little better. Let's try it with the square wave. So we're still on narrow pulse sub. Versus square sub. Definitely on the square wave, you could feel the weight of that sub oscillator. I don't know why that word took a bit for me to come all the way to. Now, let's add some pulse width modulation. Beautiful sorts of almost super saw type sounds, right? Right? You can kind of get into that trancey sort of thing as well. Hypothesis, I have a instance of Valhalla delay on just to give this, otherwise this monosynth can sound a little bit, it sounds good, but you kind of need some effects. And then it sounds ready for a record, right? And I do have a Roland SH-2, so this is the predecessor to the SH-101 from 1979 back here. And this synthesizer as well kind of has this immediate charisma. It just sounds very good. Now, let's hear how that sounds with that sub-oscillator. And I love any synthesizer. This is something I noticed on the Juno 6. Any synthesizer that lets you blend in the sub-oscillator as opposed to having a hard sub, just on or off switch. All right, so Adept, I saw someone else comment that. What are the issues with this? I had some problems with their drum machine. But with the most recent firmware, I haven't had any issues yet, but we shall see. Now, what we can't do, we only have one voltage-controlled oscillator per voice. So even though we have a mixer of the different waveforms, they're all phase locked, so we don't get any way to detune them. The noise floor is a thing, actually. So why don't I show that to you guys? So I'm going to go to, let's see here. I'm going to turn my delay off, and I have a gate on, which, by the way, I have that on all the time on anything that I do. I'll have a gate. But why don't we do a little, just so you can hear it. I'm going to boost the volume by 12 decibels. For those of you guys who aren't audio nerds, that's double. So 6 decibels is double, 12 is double that, right? And we'll turn the gate off. Can you hear that? Interesting digital noise in there. Now, let me turn the volume adjustment off. Actually, it looks like I just dropped some frames, so I'm going to just take a second here. So that's what it sounds like without the volume adjustment. It's in there. That's what it sounds like, basically 4 times as loud. I've already got it. I mean, that's loud, right? But 4 times it's there. So anyways, just, there is some noise, but have you guys heard it while I was playing beforehand? That would be the question. Yeah, I can't. Oh yeah, it's definitely. Like, here's an example. So with the sine really low, there's some, you can hear the noise. And so it is a thing. Now, I live in a world of vintage synthesizers that, constantly fighting ground loops. And I'll take a synth in and get it fixed. And I'll say, hey, it needs these tweaks, whatever. I'll get it home, and then like 3 months later, it'll start to develop a ground loop. And the power in this room is very dirty power because I've got all these lights and shit in here that change colors and all of that. So I'm used to a certain level of noise from all of my synths, so I don't really think about it. It is digital noise as opposed to analog. I don't know. You know, it's just, I think it's pretty good. Yeah, I'm sorry if I've had any stuttering. Let me just double check my internet settings here. Should be as good as it can be. With that, can I get a scum cheers in the chat for everybody who makes Wednesday nights here on YouTube the place to fucking be? I appreciate you guys so much, and we're gonna have a lot of fun tonight. So, cheers. That's what I'm talking about. Now, I'm going to go to menu. Actually, I don't even think I need to. Here we go. So go to empty 3. Now we have a blank sequence, right? And everybody knows my nemesis is a sequencer. I like playing with my hands. I'm kind of like old school that way. And by old school, I just mean, I don't know. The 100R would be a great combo. I've got the R53 behind me, Genki. So I know where you're going, Genki, and with that, why don't we record something? So let's pick up a wave here. So we'll go like that. Let's turn the release all the way down. So we got the delay on still, but let's record some of this sort of thing. Oh, wait. So this is a good example, actually. So I've already messed it up. I could go back, edit these, but why don't I just hold shift and clear here? We'll just wipe the thing. There we go. When it does the little like, epilepsy trigger, that's when you know it's worked to clear the pattern. So let's see how many times it takes me to get this right. I need to hit the rest button. Rest. There we go. That should be the pattern. Let's see. We're in the neighborhood, right? Does anybody know the song? Too much resonance and it gets a little weird, but... Right. We could also do it with the square wave. Try that out and add some PWM, right? You're kind of right, Tripwell, in the sense that Gesaffelstein was very influenced by this band. And we can use this faux sine wave, it's really a triangle wave, to thicken up the sound. However, if you want to, really the way they did this, by the way, too, is they layered an SH-101 with a Yamaha, probably a DX7, might have been one of the other ones, like a DX100, was probably a DX7 on the base 1 patch. That would be my guess. I mean, it's no joke, right, as far as a bassline machine. Oh, shit. You know, so if you want to go into that territory, that wonderfully EBM, industrially type nasty bassline territory, it's free for you with this synthesizer. So that's also, by the way, we have, instead of 16 slots here, so why don't we just go to another pattern here. We'll go to empty 4, and we can kind of see how this works a bit too. So we'll go to record again. And we'll do the same thing. We'll go rest, 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 like that, right? So again, we have that same bass line. I fucked it up. So going back into record, we can kind of go here. See, I've got a rest here for some reason, so I could just hit that, and now we've hopefully fixed that. You're welcome, Crystal. But let's say now we want to go in here and we can just kind of go all the way to our first. So this is step 17 of 17. So now we could go in and go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then rest. And then we want to go rest. I think I'm doing this right. And then finally, did that do that? And then rest. And then, okay, so if I did that right, we now kind of have like that same pattern, but up a third. So this should sound pretty evil. Okay, so somehow to hear it trigger, I remember thinking, well, that didn't really. So we'll go to 32, and then this should be. There we go. Hopefully, maybe it's just a velocity. I hit it really slow. This does have velocity, by the way. So that's, now you can see that we're using this much of the sequencer. So we have another 32 steps we could use, actually. And it shows you 4 steps per cube now when you're kind of in this mode. And then you can chain patterns together to do songs. We do have different waveforms here, so we could jump over to square wave if we wanted to, control the filter that way, and we'll just turn the speed way down. So we'll try that out. And I get a scum cheers for some technical issues. I figured it out. I was like, well, my microphone broke. I'll just grab another mic and set it all up or whatever. Oh, take care, guys. Cheers to some fuckery. I wanted to mention that we've got noise and random here, okay? So what does that mean? So random is going to be hopefully like a sample and hold type sound. Really good. Yeah, there it is. Yo, I appreciate you. Yeah, we can just jump over to a vocoder Pope bot. We're back. Headphones jack. No, it was an automation thing in my DAW. A lot of the times when I do an intro jam, I'll have it automatically kill my mic. I think I'm going to stop doing that because it's caused more problems than it's solved. Then we also have noise. So let's hear how that sounds. So this is interesting. It's taking the noise source and using it as a control voltage, and when you use it routed, I bet this doesn't, the LFO rate doesn't do much, I would think. Yeah, so really when you're using the noise here, what you're doing is you're just sending the noise as a control voltage to the filter, which in small amounts can sound kind of cool, even like distorted. Muscle and mute. James Quake, I really like this thing. Now, I don't own an SH-101 for a reason. I own virtually every other vintage synth that I've ever wanted. And I don't own an SH-101 because I like having two oscillators to detune, right? But considering that this is about as, you know, that so many people love the SH-101, I think it's a great sounding synth. I haven't had any problems since Sonic. Yeah, we should get diodes and rust fired up here. Synth mode welcome. But the thing is that it just is a very enjoyable piece of instrument. Now we're going to use a little of the noise source to the LFO here to add some distortion. Sorry, I was getting lost because it was like nice and acidy. See how like a moderate amount of that noise actually just kind of gives it like this real grit to the filter. Which to my ear sounds a little bit better than just using the noise source, right? All right, so I'll take that challenge, Tripwell. Why don't we do a resound with this synth? I'm going to open the filter all the way and increase the sustain all the way. Interesting, we can use noise to control the PWM as well. Kind of has an interesting sort of sound too. Audio engineer, I don't know in pounds. I would assume it's a bit more. You could go ahead and try to use the discount code in the link in the description and see what happens. Let me know if you can see what it'll say. So let's to get a resound, we're going to need to use pulse width modulation, right? So let's set this back over to a triangle wave. Karmic, the build quality is awesome for the price point. I think it feels great, feels premium, much more so than other competitors can do at this price point. With Roland, you get decent enough build quality, but it's pretty plasticky and very small. With Behringer, you get, you know, kind of plasticky build quality. This feels really nice. Everything's really smooth. I love the look of it. Yeah, Synthsonic, it definitely has that like incredible Roland-y sound. That's one of the first things I noticed about it is I've played with some clones. We've done plenty of shootouts with both hardware and software on this channel. And immediately when I heard the filter, I was like, yeah, that sounds like that Roland-y IR3109 filter chip. So what we can do. By the way, we actually have a drone mode over here if you want to use it. Pretty ripping. We could drop it down an octave and see how it sounds. I think for a Reese, it's better to be only an octave apart, but it's kind of, for like electro bass type stuff, it's different, but I mean, how do you fuck with that? Although you can hear a little bit of that digital noise in the background, right? Sebastian, take care, okay? One more time, I'll just turn the gate off. You guys hear that? It's non-trivial. Yeah, I guess it has, so what do we have? We have in and out. Wait, isn't it? We've got sync in and out, CV out, and gate. So does that mean we don't have trigger input? Only sync input for something like the LFO? Is that what it is? Well, if you're using like any sort of modular Eurorack format, you're going to want to sequence everything using, you know, trigger and gate inputs. So that basically means like if you have a Eurorack sequencer or something, you're spitting out trigger and gate info into the synth. If I understand, who was just saying that? Good dog. let's take it down an octave, and we'll go up an octave. Kind of that more, you know. Pretty ripping bass. It's obvious why people use this for all sorts of techno, electro-industrial type music. Make it more of a pluck now. The thuds. Even if you just wanted to use this for like an 808, like, so for instance, we actually do that real quick. Why don't we do that? So I'm going to bring the right, and what we can do is we could of course just do this with the triangle wave. But what we could do is then use envelope 1 and send that to the pitch mod. Sorry, that's the wrong one. We can actually make our own techno percussion, right? And it's got this beautiful range, so you could take it very far. I'll turn that off for a second. That's with no... What? I mean, I don't know if you have like really good subwoofers. If you do, I might have just ruined them. The fucking low end is crazy. And then if we bring in a square wave, right? We get more techno-y. Almost gabbery type sounds, right? That's your sort of blush response, like ripping kick drum. Yeah, it's satisfying. We could also do the same sort of thing, but instead of using those, we could use noise. And then really just shaping that with the envelope and release here, so... So that's the beginning of a sort of type sound. But we need a little bit of thump in there, so we just bring in that sub. Maybe it's a little too low. Yeah. I want to say the original 909 was an E note, so... So depending on what kind of snappy shit you want to do. That's a pretty decent snare right there. Considering, you know, maybe just a little less of that square. Somebody sample that. It's not bad, right? So you can see too how all of these techno artists from back then would have taken an SH-101 and they wouldn't have stopped just at using it for leads or basses or something like that. They would have taken it further and further. Just saw the filter self-oscillate and LFO can do audio rate speeds. I don't know if I'd quite call it audio rate, my friend. LFO max here. Resonance all the way with everything off. And I don't really hear anything. All right, so it's self-oscillating, and not only is it self-oscillating, it's ripping. It sounds pretty good to my ears, but I don't have perfect pitch, so anybody with perfect pitch will probably be out of here. Take care, adapt. Well, let's see if it can go into LFO. I guess it's technically audio rate in the sense that it's... But to me, it's not really giving me anything that I would use. It's good, but it's not like when you can push something severely into audio rate and start creating sidebands and basically get ring modulation or amplitude modulation. It sounds like FM. It's not exactly what we get here. It's that classic kind of 90s sound. I don't personally, what I wouldn't mind, and I totally think this is the original hardware, because if you guys saw my Roland Juno 6 video I did a few weeks ago, you'll notice one of the things I praised about that synthesizer was the envelope 1 to filter amount was very little. It was a very little amount, so there wasn't a lot of room to go too extreme with it. It was kind of always in the sweet spot. It might be the exact same. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it is, because both of the Juno 6 and this synthesizer have IR3109 filter chips in them. And if this is a pretty damn good clone of the SH-101, then that range is probably correct to the original. But having said that, I wouldn't mind if it went a little further. There's that Reese for you. because you could hear how the range doesn't go super far. Now, if I turn keyboard tracking off, yo, what's up? It's Big Dog Nate. How you doing? But yeah, I wouldn't mind if it had a little bit more range on that. I would think the 6 does. I guess I could go look at it real quick for you, Grow Dog. Good dog. No, we're listening to Valhalla delay, Keith. Taking the FM and pretty much as far as we can take it. It's close to audio rate. I think it's technically audio rate. It's probably more than 20 cycles a second, but so, Good Dog, this has sync in and out, which would have been kind of the same thing, where this can sync this guy in. Plus, MIDI exists, so, like, worst case, you could just MIDI into this guy. It's funny how I can't even hear the sub because there's just so much FM going on. We have all of the source mixer completely down, so we're just hearing filter FM. So without it peaking the resonance, that's self-oscillation. Can I get a scum cheers in this fucking chat? Shit. Is that Mucker there? How's it going? So what's the verdict so far, guys? So here would be kind of my take on it. As far as if you want an SH-101, I kind of feel the same way about the Donner B1, their 303 clone. It's like, why would you get anything else? They're so good. The biggest problem that people pointed out too is if I turn off, the gate, here's how it sounds without the gate on here. Can you guys hear that? So there is some noise that comes through. And for some people, this is just an unacceptable amount of noise. To me, it's, I'd be curious to see how it sounds with YouTube compression, right? So I think it sounds pretty good. Now, as far as like the analog parts of it, the signal path, I think it sounds very, very good. It's got everything you could want from an SH-101 clone, and it is cheaper than the Behringer version and feels more premium, right? That's pretty good. Just like if we just stop there and just say, okay, what is the cheapest SH-101 clone? It would probably be one of the Roland digital versions. So Hydrashock, if this is the Hydrashock I'm thinking of, DJ Hydrashock, I know you have a System 8, right? Because you're sponsored by Roland, right? So they have an SH-101 model built in to their keyboard, and it's very good. It's the analog circuit behavior. Is there going to be a lot for someone who has an ACB Roland product here, like the SH-01A or whatever it was, the original boutique, which actually has 4 voices of digital polyphony? No, I think that those sound really great too. And I think that this sounds really great. It's all analog. It has a voltage controlled oscillator based on the famous 3340 oscillator chip, right? So that's the same one that's in, I guess none of the synths behind me right now, but the Prophet 600 has it. I know another one or two of mine has it in there. And then the IR 3109 filter chip, right? Most famous filter chip. One of the most famous ones in the world, the Roland, went into the Jupiter 8, right? So it's all there. And I think sonically it sounds great. The sequencer's great. I'm terrible. I'm famously terrible with sequencers, but even I could survive this one. And 64 steps is nice. You can change the step length. You can chain different patterns together. I think some people are going to be a little bit mixed on this, like a glass touch strip, but I think it's cool. I mean, for the price point, like I said, it's pretty badass for, again, use the code in the description, $228, right? Pretty crazy. So yeah, and I think Good Dog has a point. It doesn't have trigger input versus sync input. That's fine. I think that I'm also totally fine with not grasping his point. I believe I understand what trigger input is, but I've I don't have a modular setup here, so I'm not going to test it for you right in front of you. It's clearly not for you, Good Dog. You should just get a synth that has that. It's everything you could want from an SH-101. For all intents and purposes, it is one. I watched Loop Hop's video going into this and saw that there were some differences with the noise. Kind of sounded different. That seemed to be the biggest difference. But immediately when I turned it on for myself, because sometimes you hear some differences in the room or with some really great audiophile headphones, right? Versus YouTube compression, where you go, oh, there is a little difference in the filter. I don't have an SH-101 to compare. I do have an SH-2 right there, which is the predecessor from 1979. So I'm very familiar with how this vintage Roland monosynth, SH synth sounds. And the moment I turned this on, I was like, damn, they got the filter right. And a lot of it does have to do with gain staging. I don't know who in Donner is over there making this all work, but to me, it sounds really good. 325 Canadian is good. Now, I do want to say something. Dubstation points out Michigan Synthworks. He's got the 101 clone. A newly ordered Yamaha CS-01. That's fucking awesome, dude. Carl says, I have an original SH-101. It sounds wonderful, fat, and farty. This Donner sounds different, yet amazing. Of all the modern SH-101 clones, this one is really good. So there's the answer, right? This doesn't sound exactly like an SH-101. But for me, I think it sounds really great. I actually think it sounds kind of better. Let's take this up. And let's bring in... So like around here where it starts getting really bright. That to me sounds like the SH-2. And I think the PWM sounds really good on this. It really gives you that like thing people want from analog that you don't even get from all vintage analog synths, which is just, it's bright, it's buzzy, it's full, it's fat, it's warm. How's it going, Rob? Keith says, it also seems kind of fun. Don't ignore that. That's absolutely true. Where, for me, a big part of a synthesizer is, hey, you know, when you kick it on, does it give you that immediate sense of like, it sounds good. I'm having fun. The interface is easy to understand. I've said it a few times this stream, so I apologize. There's a reason I don't own an SH-101. I quite like detuned sounds, even if it is a mono sound, so I like. But the PWM's range is really good, where you can take it a little too far. Almost into like Hoovery type. Blue Monkey Junk says, price should never be considered when choosing a synth, in my opinion. I love my Microfreak and I have more expensive, but it's so versatile. I am a big fan of talking about price, not to disagree with you, Derek. But I think it's important that we talk about price because there's a whole chunk of the synthesizer community that talks about synthesizers like money, just like there's no inflation. You can just set money on fire. Everybody should get a Yamaha CS80. You know, it's like, sure, a synth can sound great, but if it costs $5,000 or it costs $10,000, right? Does that make it justified? Now, right now you can get SH-101s, the originals, for very good prices, like around $1,250 or so. Last time I looked, it might be a little more now. I don't know. So you could get a piece of history for $1,250. But if all you really care about is the experience of an SH-101 and the sound is close, it's really good sounding, I think. We could get into this almost choir-y type sound, right? Sounds great for what it is, you know. It's a $228 synthesizer, 325 Canadian. Thank you, Aquatic. So, you know, comparing that to a $1,250 vintage synthesizer, I mean, with trigger input, by the way, you know, what are you going to say? It's an incredible value from that point of view. Is it incredible value from the perspective of everything you could buy? That's kind of tough. There's a lot of really great digital synths. 228 is still very, very cheap. Obviously not polyphonic. Nothing in this price point is, except for the Behringer Paraphonic, like Pro VS types $50 toy synths that they put out. The Informal Game, welcome. Is this where we disparage this synth because it's not Moog? I am Base Station 2 is great, Tripwell. I am not a Moog, like, I don't know what the word is for it. I think Moog makes some fine synths, obviously. But I am not one of those people who thinks Moog is like the only synth company for me. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine the MS-101, the Behringer version, has trigger in for Good Dog. Yeah, the System 1 does an okay so the System 1 and the System 8 do really good emulations of this. The ACB is very good. Just a small amount of that. Maybe a little pitch mod too. Now I do hear a little clicking. And I don't know what's causing that. So a little bit of that gate opening and closing or something. So, what do you guys think? I want to know what you guys think about this synthesizer, Droner. I'm a 2 oscillator per voice type of a guy. I will say this: if you only have one VCO, I would be fine with it being a DCO2. So any sort of monosynth that has a DCO, that's not going to bother me because you don't have any movement in the sound from detune anyways. I suppose technically you would have some movement in the sound in the overall mix. So that could be good. But yeah, I think, yeah, it's there. For all the Moog snobs, I do have a Moog Source vintage analog synth sample pack. Angel Spit, I appreciate you so much for the pimpage. So yeah, what do you guys think though? First off, is anybody in the market for an SH-101? Because we're a lot of snobs over here. We're spoiled for choice. I think that might be the first knock against it. So I'll give the pros and cons the way I like to, which is talking about 3 people I think the synth is for and 3 people I don't. So the easiest one ever is if you're someone who wants a cheap analog monosynth that sounds like an expensive analog monosynth that feels premium. Premium's not the right word. Like I said, there's a little wobble in the faders here, some stuff like that. But it feels great. It looks great. It's fun to interact with. It's got mini keys, obviously, so it's not a fully uncompromised 61 key behemoth like what I usually have on this channel. However, for what it is, yes, easy check mark. Is it a replacement for a vintage SH-101? I would say so. Owning this makes me even less likely to ever go out and buy an SH-101 just because it's fucking close. Now, if I ever had one, I would shoot it out, of course, and maybe give, that might change my opinion. I might feel like, ooh, there's a little bit of magic left in that vintage circuitry. It's happened to me before. I love a paraphonic synth tripwell. I mean, the monopoly is one of the best ever. I'm sad to see I've sold my monopoly. I think this is the last week that she's going to be back here. So taking her down to Miami next week. Oh, I'm going to miss her, but maybe we'll get another one. I don't know. So the next person I think this is for any producer who is in the box, right? And they're just thinking to themselves like, you know what? Maybe there's something to analog circuitry. Maybe there's a little magic there, right? This is a great path because for 228, you're really not getting it's a very easy risk as compared to almost anything else. Of course, there's the Behringer version. I would say if you're a producer and you're working in the box, I would skip the digital synths, right? Because then you're really just talking about the difference of using a mouse versus using hands-on control with knobs. And I think there's a difference, but ultimately there's something to be gained with an analog synth as opposed to a virtual analog synth. And in this case, I think, this is a very good option for someone who wants to bring in a little bit of analog magic into the box. I'm not saying plugins don't sound great. I've spent so much time, that went into it with plugins. We've done so much on this channel. I love that people are just really hung up on the trigger in thing. It's good. Carl says, I just researched the MIDI CCs on this, and I think each fader is MIDI controllable. If so, then this beastie wins. Yeah, and I mean, I would have to look it up too, but that's one of the things about like a modern synth as well, is that you do have all of those, extra amenities built in. It's not that you can't figure out how to run MIDI into an SH-101. They make boards and stuff for that, but if it comes with a handle strap, mullet, and cape, then it wins. Yes, of course, the original. That's maybe one issue, right? Is this key bed pops right off. It's a MIDI controller in and of itself, too. It's kind of like a magnetic thing. So you could use the MIDI out here, right? Or USB, and just use this as a MIDI controller on its own, right? So this has value without even its attachment, but just clicks right on. But it's not, you can't really lift it, right? So if you wanted to do the keytar thing, I would I would strap some duct tape to the back of it or something. Yeah. I have an aquatic. I'd love to check out a Chaos pad. I saw DJ Starscream using one once, and I was like, damn, it's really good. Informal game, I've done several videos on the Poly 800. One of my favorite vintage synths, which is about the price of this, which is pretty crazy. So who else is this not for? Okay, so 228, when this arrived at my door yesterday, so Donner was kind enough to send this to me for free to check out. And however, when it showed up at the door, the UPS guy, first off, he thought I was Jordan Rudess because he looked through the door, saw the synthesizers, and he saw the beard, the gray beard, and goes, "Oh," and I'm like, no, look at, I'm in the fucking hood. Jordan Rudess does not live in the hood. However, after that, he's like, here's this, but you got to pay for it. And I'm like, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. This is a free synth, and I've never had someone deliver something on my door. And there was a $64 charge. Now, I don't know, because what's weird about that is that, you know, depending on what the tariffs are, I don't even know exactly what the tariffs with China are right now in America, at least. So this is a USA specific thing, but it's worth saying, okay? Because 228 sent to, you know, Aquatic Borealis, or 325 in Canadian dollars, right, is different because I had to pay the tariff on this. And so 228 to you, depending on where you live, and this channel is not USA centric, right? I mean, plenty of us live in the USA, but there's also people who live all over the world who watch this channel. And, you know, so, but if you do, keep in mind that if you buy a Behringer MS-101, which is back ordered, by the way, you can't get one right now, but if it was available again on Sweetwater, they've paid the tariff, right? So the price that you see, that's the final price. Whereas if you buy this from China and send it to America, just like anything else from China, you will have to pay the price. So something to keep in mind, right, when you're factoring in what it's worth. Now, in my case, 228 plus 64 is still less than $300, right? So even at that point, the value is there. But I did want to at least mention that, because some people might see this 228, buy it, and then it was the strangest thing, guys, that the guy was like, I can't give you this until you pay this. And I said, okay, how do I pay it? Do I have a credit card? I'll just swipe, you know? And he's like, no, you can't use a credit card. You have to use a check or a money order. And if the guy wasn't driving the fucking UPS truck, wearing the fucking UPS uniform, and holding the synthesizer I knew was coming from China to my house, I would have thought it was a fucking scam. I was like, you know, like, well, you have to use a check. So I had to go crawl through the stuff, and my girlfriend got her checkbook out, and like whatever, I had to Zelle her. Like, my point is, I am not in any way trying to have a pity party here, because it's a free synthesizer they sent me. It's amazing. And it's because of you guys, the viewers of the channel, that has made it possible that any synthesizer company would want to send me something for free. I think is amazing. So thank you. Can I get a scum cheers in the fucking chat? That's what I'm talking about. But I just don't want anybody to buy this synthesizer and then go, oh my God, I didn't realize, you know, the final price is not 228. The final price is 228 plus the tariff. So that's all I had to say about that. Sorry. There's a bit of a rant there. Blue Monkey Junk, aka Derek, says, is it touch sensitive? Yes. It does have velocity. And you have the touch controls here. I don't know if you can see that on the stream, but it says touch, and you've got light, normal, hard, and you can set that up in the menus there. I think it's very easy to learn the synth. I think it feels fine. They're mini keys, but like I said, I like petting them. They have this very nice matte finish to that. Mixmaster, if the Behringer comes with a strap and a handle, as much as I love Donner, I might have to recommend that. 011000111000101. I agree. It's great to have both. Let's see. Oh, a Chaos Pod and a Mod Wave is a good one. We need a muscle and strap. is definitely a big part of that. That was the delivering to the hood upcharge. Oh my God, Mom, that's really funny. Awesome informal. Yeah. Aquatic says, dude, I had to pay more in duties than this synth cost when the GS E7 was sent to me. To be honest, so I've done a video before all of the tariff stuff happened. I did a video on talking about getting synths from Japan, which is a good idea. It's a great thing to do. However, even back then I was paying duties and it usually ended up being about 5% of the price of the synth. Now it's more, of course. So yeah. So Mixmaster says, yeah, the heightened tariffs until November 10th, right? It's like this constantly changing thing. And we still have tariffs, just not heightened ones. It was some crazy, like over 100% for a bit there. 10% reciprocal tariff. Yeah. So whatever it is, $64 feels more than 10%. Jason, welcome. How's it going? Yeah. Let's buy a few t-shirts to cover the price of the tariffs. Angel Spit with the eternal pimping. I appreciate it. So anyways, my point is, there's that. Who do I not think it's for? I do not think this synth is for a good dog at all. Good dog, just stick with your SH-101. This is not for you. Who else do I not think it's for? I think some people who are newer to the hardware synth game might buy this and be a little underwhelmed just because it's a monosynth with one VCO, right? There's not, two, so you can't get anything particularly detuned and juicy. And it's really for leads and for basses. That's what you're going to use this for. You're not going to use this for much else. So we can almost kind of get into almost like a mogy, brassy type sound here. You can hear that velocity there. But you can also sometimes hear that noise. You hear it in there? Can you hear that little bit of noise? I feel like Donner has had trouble since the B1 was like, they knocked it out of the park with that 303 clone with the built-in distortion and delay. Their drum machine died on me in midstream. That was my fault. I didn't update the firmware, but it still didn't look good. The L1 I love, but man, it would have been great if they just not had that digital noise issue at all, because then that's one thing. Yeah. James Quake says, what do you think about this versus a Roland MC202? Refresh my memory, the MC202, that's the one that has even minier keys than this and is basically an SH-101. It doesn't have noise, I want to say, but it's got a much more kind of like deeper sequencer-y type thing, and you can spit it out. And Good Dog wants a clone for live use. Yeah, so that's another really good example. This thing is small, but not too small, right? So yeah, as far as if you wanted like a baseline synth, and especially if you were using a bunch of sequencers, right? Because you just bust this out of here, right? Like this. And then you could just have this part of your setup, right? You could be using this and integrate it into a tabletop setup really well. So that's a very good example of this. Yes, Damien, funny that you posted that right as I said that. So yeah, there we go. So I mean, if I had to have a choice of the MC202 versus this, I probably, the vintage snob in me would go for the 202. But what I would recommend to anybody who's not insane like me would obviously be, this is very good. You know, and for Good Dog, the 202 has a trigger in. Oh my gosh. Oh, the trigger in. So who else do I not think this is for? Okay, so I think I pretty much, I don't know if I got to 3 people I don't think this is for. You're not, I guess, the noise. So I'm of two minds when it comes to the noise, and I think it's kind of up to you guys. I will, you know, that's how it sounds. For this section of the video, I'm going to turn the gate off. And you can, you know. Now, while I'm speaking, you can listen to the noise of the machine and decide for yourself if it's the type of thing that's going to drive you crazy. I suppose if you were to do this in a so for me, I work in a DAW mostly. I don't do anything that's DAW-less, so I shouldn't even say mostly. Everything is DAW full. And so gating things is just a plugin, right? It's not that big of a deal. I could see in a hardware setup, especially if you were going to use distortion anywhere in there, right? This amount of noise is unacceptable because it will get amplified, right? And you'd have to have like a separate gate pedal just to tame it. So while I'm speaking again, I want to keep it in perspective here, how subtle the noise is. Well, I guess it depends, Rob. Do you prefer Angel's Envy or Johnny Walker? So yeah. So I don't know if this CV, if it's CV out and then a gate. I think that's what it is. So I think these are the outs, and then it has syncs in and external in, but I don't think it has that. So how many? It looks to be about, I would guess, Carl Pop-Tart is about that. 1, 2, 3. It's a 6, or it's like, what would it be if it was more than that? It would be a lot. It would be, if it wasn't 6, it would be 9, 10, 11, 12. It would be either 6 or 12, for sure. Yeah, we definitely have to measure every synthesizer in number of Pop-Tarts. Lex Dynamic, the Takesman, has entered the chat. You can always count on Lex Dynamic to drop a fire take, like, just get a plug-in. Lex just loves to set the world on fire, and I don't blame him. So, I'm again speaking about the noise. There is a vintage snob, synth snob part of me. Can I get some scum snobs in the chat who does care about very minute differences, details in filters, right, and in oscillators. And it seems odd for me to let something like this noise issue slip. But for me, it just isn't that big of a deal. Like, is it bothering anybody right now as I speak? Because the synth is cranked. And I've deliberately left the gate off during this part so y'all can just hear how she sounds, Oh, it's nice that the Michigan Synthwork one can have an additional CV jack that can be routed to an additional VCA or the filter, allowing to add more modulation possibilities. Aquatic says he's not noticing the noise. So yeah, I think that's another interesting point about the noise. What I'm saying is, you can make the call for yourself. Now, I understand that some other YouTubers made videos and they showed it, right? And we could pull up a spectrum analysis and show that, yeah, there is a lot more noise occurring from the synthesizer than maybe its competitors. But I just think it's also important to keep that in perspective. The noise is on right now. I can hear it for sure. It is bothering me a bit, but it's like, would it stop me from using it as a synth? No, because I gate most synths when or every synth when I have them on the channel, they're gated because I never know what kind of noise I might get because of the electricity in the room. Like when the lights change colors, sometimes I notice noise and then it goes away, stuff like that. Lex Dynamic, what Donner product did you have and what problems did you have for it? It's interesting. I'm going to put the gate back on. So yeah, I think this thing's fucking... For me, I think this thing fucking rips. That's the thing. Like a lot of Korgs and Kawais, the vintage stuff, the noise floor is not what it was. And, you know, Hypothesis says, I thought noise was the main reason we all like analog. I agree. Yeah. Travel guitar. Hector, the white noise from a Juno chorus is much more noticeable than the noise from this. That's actually a very good kind of comparison. But if you ran it through a Behringer Centaur, it would, the noise would be an issue. That might be true with anything though. Yeah, and here's the thing. Florian from the Bad Gear channel, he's had more experience with more shitty gear than I have. I haven't seen his video yet. I usually watch his. All I can say is that to me, the build quality is great. You know, am I a master of synthesizers? No, I'm just a guy who likes synths. You know, just like you, right? There's no difference. We all have our opinions. There's certain things that I'd be more, I would stand behind my opinion stronger on than when it comes to build quality, because like I said, one of my favorite synthesizers, DW8000, probably not the best build quality, but I love that synth, and the build quality is good enough that I'm happy with it, right? But it's pretty clacky, feels pretty plasticky, feels kind of cheap. I like the look, but it's probably ugly as sin to most people. I think the look of this synth is great. I think that's more unarguable, unless you just, you know, like a different kind of look of a synth. But for the price point and everything, I think it looks the most premium. And I think the build quality is great. I've always felt that about Donner stuff. The synths here, I'm not talking about their guitars. I wouldn't be surprised if there's my understanding, or my guess I should say, about Donner is they probably have like a lot of other cheap Chinese manufacturers are cranking out stuff for, you know, beginner musicians on Amazon, right? And so I think the guitar is probably in that category. They seem to be taking the synthesizer stuff pretty seriously. So, and that's another point. Mixmaster says, you make it sound good. I would just say, first off, thank you. But secondly, you can make most synthesizers sound pretty good. And this one, for me, I think it just ticks that box of it sounds pretty good to me. I'm very happy with how it sounds. Espen called this the Nord lead of monosynths. Did he mean that positively or negatively? Because we all know how I feel about a Nord lead, but a lot of people like that. Droner, yeah, it's very clacky. Derek asks, of all the synths you've tried, what produces the most bizarre sounds? Akai AX60 is bizarre in the sense that the resonance is so out of control. From there, the Matrix 12 is unstoppable in terms of like how far you want to take it. Bizarre. And then I'd say that the MS-20, right? You know, obviously this could just go really much more interesting. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Todd. I think Alex C, welcome. So sad that you're just catching the end here. I've sort of rambled on long enough. I think this is a good place to call it for tonight. Do we need a second Behringer? I think we do. I think it's a good thing to put some pressure on that company. On the other hand, you know, for some people, they're not interested in Behringer stuff anyways. So there's that as well. I've said my piece on Behringer many times on this channel, so I'll spare you guys this time. In summary, though, I like this synth. Can we just leave it at that, you know, for tonight anyways? I like this synth. I'm happy I have it. It was super cool that Donner sent it to me. Am I biased because they sent it to me for free? Yeah, of course I am. Everybody on this fucking YouTube game is a little biased when they get something for free. However, it didn't stop me from having a very negative review of their drum machine, and they were cool enough to send this to me anyways. They probably didn't watch my whole review. That would be my guess. If I were them and I'd watched my whole review of that, I would not have sent me something else. Vulture Mom, the Polyvox can get out there for sure with the looping envelopes and everything. ARP 2500 Collins 1047 filter is the best resonance I've ever heard. I believe you, my friend. I would love to hear that resonance with mine own ears once in my life, you know. Yeah, it's good, Jason. It's good. Is it great? Well, the noise thing isn't great. The trigger input thing is enough to drive Good Dog to suicide. But, you know, as far as, you know, compared to an SH-101, I think it's pretty good overall, for sure. Oh yeah, I mean, we could get disturbing. I love I don't do enough disturbing sound design on this channel, just because I don't know. I guess it's kind of like, it's like all bets are off when you do disturbing sound design, but I should do more. I certainly use it when it comes to my own music, you know. Yeah. I'll send you my Donner travel guitar for free just because no one else wants the fucking thing. Yeah, that's funny. Droner, no. It's a previous generation. I love the keybed on the MPS, but again, I probably have shitty taste when it comes to keybeds. So, but to me, I think it's great. Yeah, well, we should do another disturbing sound design stream. I think people are in this. Would I gig this? Yes, I would gig this. Again, with maybe the caveat that you'd maybe be curious to have some noise gate in there. The noise might drive me crazy in a gig situation, but yeah. Okay, the people have spoken. Disturbing horror sound design it is. We'll have to bring that up. I swear to God I will do the K2000 soon. I had a huge project that I've completed last week. Very excited to talk to you guys about that when the time is right. And I thought I was, okay, I'm going to be free. And I've got another project slapped right on the table. Hallelujah. It's a beautiful thing to be doing some work for some synthesizer companies. But, you know, it's the pressure is high as well to deliver a good, to deliver on what I do. So anyways, guys, I think that's a good place to call it for tonight. Continue to be excellent, and I will see you guys next week. Ciao.